I'm not your blood." Her voice tore through the room like a knife, every word loaded with a venom I never believed she was capable of. Elena stood across from me, her chest rising and falling fast, eyes burning with a kind of raw hatred that almost knocked the air out of me. Inside, something went quiet. Not shattered, but drained of the warmth I had carried for her all my life. I thought back on the years I had given up for her, the long nights, the constant sacrifices, the way I always put her first no matter what storms she created around herself. And now this was the truth she threw at me, that none of it counted, that I never counted. The wound was not only in the words themselves, but in the way she let them loose so easily, like a weapon she had been sharpening for years. I did not move. I did not argue back. I just let her poison sink into me, and in that stillness, I finally saw things clearly. It was time to put an end to the pretending, to face it all head on, and to settle everything once and for all. Before we continue, please subscribe to stay updated on our latest stories. And then Sophie threw herself flat on the floor, screaming at the top of her lungs because I would not buy her that ridiculous toy. Right there in the middle of Walmart, everybody staring like I was some kind of monster. Monica's voice carried that sharp note of exhaustion I had heard from her before as I placed a steaming cup of ginger tea in front of her. The mug tapped lightly against the kitchen table, the same old table where I had sat with her, working through math problems and spelling lists 15 years ago. Her hands curled around the heat of the cup, but her eyes were far away, cold. "I do not know what I'm doing wrong with them anymore, Dad. Ethan is getting into trouble at school, and Sophie..." Her words trailed off as she took a sip, more of a pause to collect her next complaint than any real enjoyment of the tea. "And Adrian?" I asked carefully, lowering myself into the chair across from her. "How is he holding up?" She let out a short, humorless laugh. "Adrian is working every extra shift he can get, and it still is not enough. The mortgage keeps going up, the car payment too, groceries are through the roof, everything just keeps climbing." She met my eyes then, and I knew that look, half plea, half demand. I honestly do not know how we are supposed to keep up with it. I felt the same pull in my chest I had felt countless times before, the tug that had opened my wallet again and again. But something about the practiced rhythm of her complaints this time made me stop short. "Monica, have you and Adrian sat down to go over your budget together? Maybe if you..." "Budget?" Her tone sharpened instantly. "Dad, you do not get it. This is not about giving up coffee runs or small extras. These are real bills. I know they are, sweetheart. But if you tracked where the money's actually going, maybe you would find..." "Find what? That we are careless with money? That we cannot manage our lives?" She set the mug down hard, tea splashing close to the rim. "Do you think I have not tried everything already?" I lifted my hands slightly in surrender. "That is not what I meant. I only thought..." "And the kids," she cut me off, her voice climbing higher. "Maybe if you actually understood what it is like raising children today instead of judging from your armchair, you would realize you cannot discipline kids the way you did back then. Times are different now." A cold weight settled in my gut. The way she said "the way you did back then" carried a hidden accusation I could not quite name. "Monica, I am not judging. I am only trying to help. If you set clear boundaries and actually followed through with consequences..." "Consequences." She shot to her feet so quickly the chair screeched against the floor. "You think I do not understand consequences? You think I let them run wild because I am too stupid to know better? That is not what I said. You sit here in your tidy little house with your tidy little retirement and you look down on me. You judge how I raise my kids, how I handle my marriage, how I run my life." Her cheeks flushed red, her eyes blazing with something deeper than the words we were exchanging. "You do not have the slightest idea what it feels like to truly struggle. Instead of helping, you sit there lecturing me about budgets and parenting like I am still 12 years old." I felt it then, the ground shifting under us, the foundation of our relationship cracking with every word that left her mouth. "Monica, I want to help. I always have. But maybe..." "Maybe what? That I should smile wider? That I should play grateful daughter while everything falls apart around me?" Her voice shook now, years of resentment spilling out in a rush I had never seen coming. "You want the truth, Dad? The silence grew thick, stretching between us like a canyon I could not cross. My heart pounded against my ribs, and some instinct deep inside told me I was in dangerous territory. She stared at me like I was not her father at all, like all those years we shared had vanished into smoke. "I'm not your blood." The words burst out of her like acid, each one dripping with years of bitterness she had been waiting to unleash. "What could you possibly know about raising children?" I blinked, stunned, as if I had been slapped across the face. The kitchen suddenly shrank around me, the air thick and hard to breathe. "Monica," I said carefully, "you need to calm yourself and do not you dare tell me to calm down." Her voice cracked with hysteria. "And stop talking to me like I am some clueless child. You sit there acting like some kind of wise elder, but the truth is you have no idea what being a real father even means, because you are not one." Something in her tone turned my blood cold. This was not only anger, there was calculation behind her eyes. "What exactly are you saying?" I asked. "I am saying I took a DNA test last year." Her words dropped heavy between us, each syllable like a stone tossed into still water. "You want to know why I never felt that connection people talk about? Why I never felt like I truly belonged to you? Because I am not your daughter." Her laugh came out sharp and brittle. "Not at all." The world tilted under me. 25 years of memories, her first steps, scraped knees, bedtime stories, school graduations, all of them suddenly felt like stolen photographs from someone else's life. That cannot be true. "Oh, it is true." She fumbled with her phone, hands trembling but determined. "I have the results right here. 0% probability. Zero. You are not my biological father." I stared at her, at this stranger who wore my daughter's face, and I felt something deep inside me die. Not break, but die, hollowing me out from the inside. My mind raced back to those last ugly months with Victoria. The fights, the accusations, the guilt that I had written off as the ruins of our marriage. "So there you go," Monica pressed on, her voice growing stronger in the silence I gave her. "Now you see why your so-called wisdom means nothing to me. You were just some man who happened to marry my mother. You were never anybody to me." I sat frozen, time dragging like hours, even though only seconds passed. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes gleamed with something that looked a lot like victory. She was enjoying this. What had shattered me gave her triumph. When I finally spoke, my voice came out calm, too calm. "Well then." I rose slowly, tucking my chair back under the table with steady hands. I saw her eyes flicker. She had expected tears, rage, maybe even begging. Not this measured stillness. "If I am not your father," I said, walking toward the mantelpiece lined with family photographs, "then I suppose I no longer carry fatherly obligations." I picked up her high school graduation picture, her 19-year-old smile staring back at me. Into the drawer it went. Then the Christmas photos, one after another, all collected in silence. "Dad, what are you doing?" she asked, unease slipping into her voice. "I am not your dad, remember?" I did not look at her as I gathered soccer trophies I had cheered for every weekend, the crayon drawing from third grade that declared "World's Best Daddy." "You made that very clear." I did not mean, "Oh, you meant every word." I turned then, and she actually stepped back. "You took that test. You have known the results for a year, and instead of telling me in private with honesty, you waited until now, until this moment, to use it as a weapon. So yes, Monica, you meant it." Her phone buzzed in her hand, but she ignored it. "Dad, I was angry. Stop calling me that." The words cut sharper than I planned. "That title does not belong to me anymore. From now on, let us stick to the truth." I walked over to my desk, pulled out a notebook, and began listing. "Let us see. Mortgage payments, car loans, emergency funds, Christmas gifts for the kids, birthday checks, groceries when Adrian lost his job." I looked up, meeting her pale face. Quite a lot of things for someone who apparently was never a father. "You cannot be serious." "I have never been more serious." I tore the page out, folded it neat, and set it on the table. "You wanted to know what life without a father looks like? You are about to find out." Without hesitation, I pulled out my phone. Adrian answered on the second ring. "Hello, Adrian. It is me." I kept my eyes on Monica's face as her color drained. "I wanted to let you know that starting today, I will not be providing any more financial help for your family." "What? Why? Did something happen?" "I would suggest asking your wife for the explanation. She has made it clear that family ties were not what I believed them to be, so there is no reason for me to keep up obligations that never existed. I do not understand. Congratulations, son. You are now the sole provider for your household. Monica will fill you in. I ended the call before he could say another word. Monica gaped at me, horror spreading across her face. You cannot do this. The kids, they need. The kids already have two parents. That is more than enough. I am not one of them. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. It is time for you to go back to your family. This is insane. You raised me. That has to count for something. According to you, it counts for nothing. I held the door wider. You wanted the truth to come out, Monica. Well, here's another one. Actions have consequences, and you are about to learn what that feels like. She froze, tears spilling at last, but I felt nothing. The love, the instinct to protect, the quick forgiveness I had carried for her, all of it had been cut out clean by her revelation and the cruelty of her delivery. Please, she whispered, go home, Monica. Go home to your real family. Figure out how to manage your life without the man you claim was never your father. She left without another word. I shut the door behind her, and the silence that filled the house was different than any I had known before. Not empty, just finally honest. That first night hit me harder than anything in my life. I sat in my living room staring at the bare walls and empty shelves where Monica's photographs had always been, trying to figure out how I had turned into the villain in my own story. 25 years of loving, sacrificing, and putting her first, gone in a heartbeat because of a laboratory report and a moment of deliberate cruelty. I kept seeing her face in my mind, the way her eyes lit up when she delivered that final blow. There had been no shock or grief in her expression, only satisfaction. She had enjoyed watching me crumble. That was the cut that went the deepest. Not the DNA results themselves, but knowing that someone I had loved without condition had taken pleasure in tearing me apart. My mind spun with questions. How long had she known? How many dinners had she eaten at my table? How many envelopes of cash had she accepted? How many times had she let me play grandpa to her children, all while keeping this secret weapon tucked away? The betrayal sat on my chest like a lead weight. At 9 o'clock the next morning, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Adrian shifting from one foot to the other, his neat hair out of place, his shirt wrinkled. The dark circles under his eyes told me he had not slept either. When I opened the door, he said quietly, "Vincent, we need to talk." I stepped aside and let him in. His eyes went straight to the empty mantel where family pictures had stood. He looked genuinely shaken, which at least was something. Adrian had never been one to manipulate. "She told you everything?" I asked, settling into my chair. "Yeah," he muttered, rubbing both hands down his face. "Vincent, I swear I had no idea. The test, the real father stuff, she never said a word to me. But you believe her?" "Aye." He slumped forward. "She showed me the papers. I am so sorry, Vincent. I really am." His honesty was almost harder to bear than Monica's cruelty. "So why are you here, Adrian? Did you come to help me box up what is left of her childhood?" "The kids," he said softly. "Sophie and Ethan keep asking why Grandpa has not come over. They are wondering when you will visit." I met his gaze and held it. "Tell them I will not be coming. Explain it however you think best." Adrian's face went pale. "Vincent, come on. They love you, and you love them. That has to matter, even if the biology does not." There it was, the guilt card, played gently but precisely. "Explain it however you want," I said. "They are not my responsibility anymore. Remember?" He tried again. "But they love you, and you love them." I stared at this decent man caught in a mess that started long before his marriage. "Adrian, let me ask you something. If you found out tomorrow that Sophie and Ethan were not really yours, that Monica had lied to you for years, would you still feel obliged to support them financially?" His face drained of color. "That is different." "Is it? Really?" I leaned forward. "Because from where I sit, I am the one who was lied to. I am the one who built my whole identity on being a father to someone else's child, while the real father got a free pass." "The children did not choose this," he said quietly. "Neither did I." My voice came out harder than I meant, but Monica did. She chose to take that test. She chose when to tell me, and she chose to do it in the cruelest way she could. Those were her decisions. Now she has to live with what comes next. He sat for a long time, opening his mouth and shutting it again. At last he asked, "What if What if she apologized? What if she really tried to make it right? What would that apology look like? I asked. Would it erase 25 years of lies? Would it change the fact that she smiled while she destroyed me yesterday? He had no answer. He left soon after, and I sat alone with my thoughts until the phone rang that afternoon. Vincent. Victoria's voice was cold steel. What in God's name do you think you are doing? Hello, Victoria. I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. Do not you dare get smart with me. Monica is devastated. Adrian is confused. And my grandchildren cannot understand why their grandfather has suddenly disappeared from their lives. Your grandchildren? I let the words hang in the air. That is an interesting choice of words. You know what I mean. You raised her. You do not get to walk away just because things are messy. Messy? A bitter laugh escaped me. Victoria, she looked me dead in the eye and told me I was never her father. She enjoyed it. I am simply agreeing with her conclusion. She was upset. People say things they do not mean. Oh, she meant it. She had the DNA results to prove it. Results she kept to herself for a full year. That is not anger, Victoria. That is planning. Silence opened up between us, thick with decades of unspoken truths. You always were vindictive, she said at last, and you were always a liar. My voice stayed quiet, but the words hit like a hammer. 25 years, Victoria. 25 years you let me believe Monica was mine. Do you have any idea what that does to a man? Do you understand what you stole from me? I was protecting. You were protecting yourself. You were hiding an affair and you let me pay the price. Emotionally, financially, in every way that counts. And now you have the nerve to call me vindictive for refusing to keep subsidizing your deception? Those children need their real grandfather, Monica's biological father. Have you told him he has grandchildren? Does he know about his daughter's financial problems? Or are you planning to keep that secret too? Her sharp intake of breath told me I had hit home. He does not know, does he? I pressed on. All these years and you never told him. So it is not just me you robbed of the truth. You robbed him of ever being a father, and you robbed Monica of ever knowing her real dad. And yet somehow I am the one you want to paint as the villain? Tell me again how I am the one who is wrong here. It is not that simple. It is exactly that simple. My voice hardened. You created this whole mess, Victoria, you and Monica, and now you expect me to patch it over by pretending nothing happened, by continuing to play a role in a lie that has already drained me dry. Well, I am finished. Find someone else to carry that burden. I ended the call before she could get another word in, but I knew it was not the end of it. The pressure would come harder now. They would try guilt, they would try manipulation, maybe even use the children themselves as pawns. But for the first time in years, I felt clear. The fog that had weighed on me since yesterday's revelation finally lifted. I understood my place now. I was not a father. I was not a provider. I was not a safety net. And to my surprise, that realization did not crush me. It felt like freedom. 3 days later, I started clearing house. It began with her bedroom, the one I had left untouched since she moved out 5 years ago, frozen in time like a shrine to a daughter I now knew had never been mine. Every last thing went. Trophies, report cards, hand-drawn cards she had once pressed into my hands on Father's Days and birthdays. One by one, they disappeared into thick black trash bags. I worked slow, steady, like a man following a plan. The process came in waves. First her old room, then the closets, then the boxes in the basement I had labeled years ago with my own careful handwriting, Monica's things. 25 years of my life sorted, packed, and hauled to the curb like any other garbage. Mrs. Coleman from next door was the first to notice. I was dragging out the third bag when she appeared at her fence, clutching a mug of coffee, curiosity written all over her face. Moving out, Vincent? She asked, trying to sound casual. Just tossing old clutter, I told her, lifting another bag onto the growing mound. Funny how much junk piles up over the years. She leaned closer, squinting at what was spilling through a tear in one bag. A frame, some books, even a graduation cap sticking out. That's a lot of clutter. 25 years worth, I answered, and turned back toward the house. By the time I came out with the next load, Frank from across the street had joined her. The two of them stood there watching me like people gawking at a wreck on the highway, disturbed but unable to look away. Those look like family pictures, Frank said, nodding toward the box in my hands. They sure do, I replied, dropping the whole box onto the pile without hesitation. A wedding photo of Monica and Adrian spilled free, their smiling faces now headed straight for the dump. Word spread fast, the way it always does in a neighborhood. By dusk, my heap of trash had become something of a local spectacle. I caught curtains twitching, saw small clusters of neighbors whispering, phones no doubt buzzing with their theories. I was wrestling Monica's old desk, a little white one I had painted for her when she was 8, into the back of my truck when my phone rang. "Have you lost your mind?" Monica's voice cracked through the speaker. "Mrs. Kim just called me. She said you're throwing away all my things, my childhood things." "I am clearing out junk," I said, shoving the desk into place. "Objects that no longer serve any purpose in my life. Those are my memories, my pictures. You cannot just... Actually, I can. They are in my house, which makes them my property, and I have decided I do not want them anymore." For a moment I thought she had hung up. Then her voice came back, quieter. "Please, whatever else you think of me, those things, they are all I have left of being your daughter." "But you were never my daughter," I reminded her, voice flat. "You spelled that out clearly enough. So those boxes aren't memories of a father and a daughter. They are souvenirs of a lie." She broke down crying, but it stirred nothing in me. "I know you are hurt, but this is insane. People are talking, Vincent. The whole neighborhood thinks you have lost your mind. Let them talk," and they did. The story moved through the community like wildfire. At the grocery store, I ran into Beth Caldwell, who had known Monica since she was a child. "Vincent, dear, I heard about everything," she said, her voice dripping with sympathy. "That poor girl must be torn apart. Finding out news like that, it shakes everyone. She is probably striking out because she cannot handle the truth. But losing you on top of it, losing her father, it must be unbearable." "Is that so?" I asked, stacking items into my cart. "Of course. Maybe if you just gave her some time, some space, she might come back around if you let her work through her feelings." Beth's eyes pleaded with me, but I said nothing. I rolled on to checkout only to find a different view waiting there. Greg Sullivan, Monica's old high school principal, leaned closer and spoke in a low voice. "Vincent, I heard about the DNA thing. That's a heavy truth to unload after nearly 30 years. "It is," I agreed. "And the way she told you?" He shook his head. "I remember Monica in class. Smart girl, but there was always a calculating streak in her. Even back then, she knew exactly how to push buttons to get what she wanted." I studied him a moment longer. At last, someone who did not immediately paint her as the helpless victim. "She has been telling folks it shocked her just as much as it shocked you," Greg went on. "Claims you are blowing things out of proportion, acting out of spite. But a DNA test does not just fall out of the sky, does it? Someone has to order it, pay for it, wait on the results." "No," I said quietly. "It does not happen by accident." And choosing to drop that truth in the middle of a heated argument when you were only trying to help her. Greg shook his head, his face set in thought. "That takes a certain brand of cruelty." The lines had been drawn. On one side, there was Team Monica, spinning her as the poor daughter blindsided by science, wounded further by her father's cold rejection. They spoke the language of forgiveness, of unconditional bonds, of how blood work should never outweigh love. On the other side stood a smaller crowd, Team Vincent. They were not as many, but their voices carried weight. They spoke of her choice to hide the results for a year, the precision with which she chose her moment, and the satisfaction she took in the cut. They understood that not all betrayals can be patched over, and that even a parent's love has boundaries. The clearest moment came when I crossed paths with Carol Winters at the bank. She had been Monica's boss at her first real job, and I had always respected her. She was plain-spoken, sharp, a woman who did not sugarcoat. "Vincent," she said, catching me by the counter, "I have been hearing both versions of the story." I waited, curious which direction she would lean. "Monica came to see me last week, wanted to borrow money, said you had cut her off after some family misunderstanding. She painted it like a spat over bills, like maybe you had been a little heavy-handed. Did she now?" But then Greg Sullivan filled me in. DNA test. A year of silence. And then she chose to weaponize it. That is not a misunderstanding, Vincent. That is betrayal. Carol looked me straight in the eye. Do you know what I told her when she asked for the loan? I shook my head. I told her actions carry consequences, and maybe for the first time in her life, she was going to feel the full weight of hers. That evening, walking home past neighbors who either gave me soft smiles or turned away, I realized something important. I no longer cared whose side they were on. Their whispers, their judgments, their pity, it was all just noise. What mattered was that the lie I had carried on my back for 25 years had finally been stripped away. Every bag I dragged to the curb, every picture I let go of, every relic I tossed had cut another chain loose. The truth, in the end, was not destruction. It was release. It was freedom. 2 weeks after our last talk, Adrian showed up again, but he was not the same man who had stood on my porch before, trying to smooth things over for Monica. This time he looked worn down, torn apart, and underneath it all, angry. "We need to talk," he said, and I could hear the weight in every word. "Not because Monica asked me to, not because of the kids. This is about what I have been seeing." I stepped aside and let him in. He bypassed the living room entirely, heading straight for the kitchen table. He sat heavily, running his hands through his hair, the kind of gesture that said the pressure had been building too long. "Vincent, I owe you an apology," he started. "Not only for what Monica did, but for not seeing it earlier." I kept quiet, knowing he needed space to get it out. After our last conversation, I started paying attention, really watching her. His voice carried both disappointment and disgust. "Did you know she has been spinning different versions of the story depending on who she is talking to?" I had my suspicions. To the Kellys, she told them the DNA test was a silly whim, something she did for fun, and she acted just as shocked as everyone else. To Beth Caldwell, she claimed her mother suggested it for medical history. And to Greg Sullivan, he rubbed his temple. To Greg, she said you had been doubting her paternity for years, making her feel insecure about her place in the family. Cold anger tightened in my chest. Even now, she was still twisting the story. But the worst part, Adrian pressed on, was when I started asking her directly. Simple things, Vincent. When did you take the test? Why did you not tell me? Why did you choose that moment to tell him? And what did she say? The answers kept shifting. First, it was last spring, then 6 months ago, then suddenly it was around Christmas. The reasons flipped too. Curiosity, then medical issues, then ancestry research. Vincent, I have been married to her for 7 years. I know when she is lying. I poured him a cup of coffee. His hands shook when he took it. What else? The money, he whispered, his face pale. God, Vincent, the money. I knew you helped us sometimes, but I never realized how much. I did not understand until it stopped. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through bank records, his expression draining of color with each swipe. The mortgage payment you were covering? I thought it was a few $100s helping us with the adjustment. It was $1,200, every single month, for 2.5 years. I said nothing, letting him keep going. The car notes, the insurance, the daycare, the emergencies I thought we covered with savings. He let out a bitter laugh. We do not have savings, Vincent. We never had savings. Everything we thought was stability came from you. And now? Now? He looked up at me with hollow eyes. We are 5 weeks away from foreclosure. The car is set to be repossessed on Thursday. I already had to pull Sophie from dance and Ethan from soccer. And Monica, she acts like it is nothing. She says it is just temporary, that you will get over being dramatic. The word hit like a slap. She said that? Dramatic? Among other things, she truly believes that because you raised her, because you love her, you will fold. She thinks this is all posturing. And what do you believe? Adrian stared into his coffee for a long time before speaking. I believe she knew what she was doing when she took that test. I believe she knew exactly how deep it would cut you when she revealed it. And I believe she expected you to swallow it, forgive her, and keep playing father anyway. That is a hard verdict on your wife. It is an honest one. His voice was flat. You want to know what sealed it for me? Last night, when the kids asked about you again, she told them you were going through a phase and that you would snap out of it soon. She looked right at them and told them their grandfather was throwing a tantrum. The words hung between us. Monica was not only rewriting the story for neighbors, she was poisoning her children against me. Adrian, I said carefully, You need to understand something. This is not a phase. This is not a tantrum. I will not get over it. Monica made her choices, and I made mine. I know, he said softly, and honestly, I cannot blame you. If someone I loved and sacrificed for treated me the way she treated you, he shook his head, I would do the same. But, I prompted, but the kids, Vincent, Sophie and Ethan, they cannot grasp any of this. All they know is their grandfather is suddenly gone, and their mother keeps telling them you will be back. What am I supposed to tell them? The truth. In a way they can handle, but the truth all the same. Monica will never allow it. She already threatened to take them and disappear if I turn them against her by explaining what really happened. I studied his face, the exhaustion, the fear, the dawning awareness that he was married to someone more selfish than he had ever believed possible. What do you want from me, Adrian? If you are here hoping I will change my mind. No, he cut in quickly. That is not why I came. I came because I needed to say it out loud. Because I am seeing sides of my wife I never imagined. Because I am realizing my whole marriage rests on lies and manipulation. Adrian pushed himself up from the chair and began pacing, his shoulders tight, eyes fixed on the window. The other day I found out Monica borrowed $4,000 from her coworker Nicole, told her it was for Sophie's medical bills. He turned his head slightly, voice rough. Sophie's perfectly fine, Vincent. Healthy as can be. Monica just needed cash for something else, and instead of telling the truth, she spun another story, because she could not admit we were sinking after everything blew up between you and her. So now the lies are growing, I said. They are multiplying. His voice carried a mix of anger and disbelief. She is lying to neighbors, to friends, now to coworkers. I keep thinking, if she can lie that easily, what else has she been lying about all along? What other things did I swallow without question because I trusted her? He finally sat back down, facing me directly. His eyes were steady but worn. Vincent, I need you to hear me. I am on your side in this. What she did to you was heartless. The way she dropped it on you was vicious. And now, watching her twist the story, watching her feed lies to everyone, including our kids. I get it. I understand why you cut her off. But you are hoping I will reconsider, I said flatly. No, he said, shaking his head hard. His voice firmed. I am not asking you to forgive her. I am asking for guidance, because I am drowning here. I do not know how to shield my kids from the wreckage their mother created. I cannot patch our finances, at least not without begging for help. I have no right to ask. I cannot rebuild what she tore apart with you. That damage belongs to her alone. And I am realizing I cannot fix my wife either, because she does not believe she needs fixing. I looked at him, this decent man trapped in the fallout of Monica's cruelty, and felt something stir that I had not felt since this ordeal began. Real sympathy. Not for Monica, never again for Monica, but for Adrian and for those two children who had no say in any of it, yet carried the heaviest burden. Adrian, I said, my voice low, steady, you cannot rescue someone who is determined to drown, and you sure as hell cannot build a solid life on the quicksand of somebody else's lies. He nodded slowly, tears brimming in his eyes. I know, he whispered. God help me, I know. The phone call I made that Thursday evening was short and direct. Monica, we need one last conversation. You, Adrian, and me. This Saturday at my house, 3 o'clock. Dad, this is my last act of good faith. I cut in. If you want even the slightest chance of repairing this, you will show up. But there is one condition. The lies end now. No more stories for the neighbors. No more victim versions for your friends. Truth or nothing. There was a pause long enough for me to hear her breathing through the line. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost its usual edge. Okay. Saturday came gray and cold, the kind of day that matched the heaviness in my living room as the three of us took our seats, Monica and Adrian on the couch, me in my chair. It felt less like a family meeting and more like a tribunal. Before we start, I said, keeping my voice calm and even, I want to be clear about why we're here. Adrian has told me some troubling things about the stories you've been telling, Monica. I'm giving you one opportunity to tell the truth yourself. Her jaw tightened. I haven't lied to anyone. Really? I reached for the small notebook I'd used weeks ago to list her financial dependence on me, now filled with new notes. Let's go through it. To the Kellys, you said the DNA test was just a whim and the results shocked you. To Beth Caldwell, you said your mother wanted it for medical reasons. To Greg Sullivan, you hinted that I'd been questioning your parentage for years. Color rose in her cheeks, but she stayed defiant. People hear what they want. I never said, and then there's the timeline. I flipped a page. Was it last spring? 6 months ago? Around Christmas? Which is it? I don't have to sit here and... Yes, you do. Adrian's voice cut through hers like a blade. She turned, startled at the ice in his tone. You wanted this meeting, he said. You told me you could fix this if Vincent would just listen. So answer his questions. Monica stared at her husband like she didn't recognize him. Adrian, you're supposed to be on my side. I was on your side. I defended you to Vincent, to the neighbors, to myself, but then I started watching. His voice gained strength. The borrowed money from Nicole that was supposedly for Sophie's medical bills when Sophie's perfectly healthy. The story about Vincent being controlling while I've seen the bank records of everything he gave us. The promises to the kids that Grandpa is just going through a phase. I was trying to protect them. Protect them from what? From knowing their mother blew up the most stable relationship in their lives out of spite? Spite? Monica's voice pitched upward. I told him the truth. After years of living a lie, I finally told him the truth. You delivered the truth in the cruelest way possible, I said quietly, after holding it for a year, in the middle of an argument, timed to cause maximum damage. That wasn't truth, Monica. That was power. Power? She gave a bitter laugh. What power? Look at my life, Vincent. Look at what your abandonment has done to my family. My abandonment? I felt anger stirring, but kept it measured. I spent 25 years loving you, supporting you, being the father I thought you needed. You spent 1 year knowing I wasn't your biological parent and chose to weaponize that knowledge against me. Who abandoned whom? Monica shot to her feet and paced to the window. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Adrian working endless hours, the kids acting out, money problems, and then learning that everything I thought about myself was a lie. So you decided to make it my problem too. You were supposed to love me anyway, she shouted. You were supposed to be the kind of father who loved me no matter what. But the second you found out we weren't blood, you threw me away like I was nothing. I let go, I said slowly, because you showed me that 25 years of devotion meant nothing to you. Because you took pleasure in hurting me. Because you stood in my kitchen and told me I was nobody. I was angry. You were cruel. There's a difference. I closed the notebook and set it aside. And more than cruel, you were deliberate. This wasn't some emotional slip. You'd known for a year. You timed it. That's not. When exactly did you take the test? Adrian snapped, his voice like a whip. And don't give me another changing timeline. When? Monica faced him, and for the first time I saw real fear flicker in her eyes. Why does it matter when? Because I've been thinking about the timing. Adrian pressed on. When our finances really started falling apart, when you started asking Vincent for help more and more, when you began those long speeches about feeling disconnected from family. Adrian, you're imagining things. Am I? Because it looks like you found out at the exact moment we needed Vincent's money most, and you held on to it like a grenade until he told you to take some responsibility for your own life. The silence was heavy. Monica's face flickered from anger to fear to calculation and then finally to something like surrender. You want the truth? She said at last, her voice cold. Fine. I took the test 14 months ago. I've known for over a year Vincent isn't my biological father. Adrian went pale. Jesus Christ, Monica. And yes, I waited to tell him because I knew it would hurt him, because I knew he'd react exactly like this. And because? She faltered. Because? I prompted. Because I wanted to punish him. The words tumbled out in a rush. My whole life, I've watched him play the perfect, responsible, moral man, always doing the right thing, always disappointed when I wasn't, and finally I had something that could make him as miserable as he made me feel all these years. The honesty was breathtaking in its ugliness. Adrian looked like he might be sick. So there's your truth, Monica said, turning back to me with defiance. I wanted to hurt you. Mission accomplished. Are you satisfied now? I looked at her, this woman who wore my daughter's face but felt like a stranger, and the strangest thing hit me. Pity. No, Monica. I'm not happy. I'm sad. Sad that someone I gave so much of my life to carried around that much bitterness. Sad that you chose cruelty when honesty was an option. Sad that you'd risk your children's security just to feed your need for revenge. Don't lecture me about my kids. Your kids are about to lose their home, I said evenly. Their financial safety net is gone. Their family is tearing apart. And instead of facing the choices that got you here, you're still twisting the story, pretending you're the victim. I rose and walked toward the same window she had stood at moments earlier. Here's how this goes, Monica. I won't help you. I won't hurt you. I won't interfere in the fallout of your decisions. You wanted life without me as your father? Well, congratulations. You've got exactly what you asked for. You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more. My tone was firm. You made your decision the day you took that test. You made it again when you hid the truth for a year. You made it a third time when you chose the cruelest possible moment to throw it in my face. And right now, you're making it again by refusing to own any of it. Adrian pushed himself to his feet, his jaw tight with fury he was barely containing. Monica, we're leaving, now. Adrian, wait. No. His voice was flat, unshakable. I've heard all I need, more than enough. He paused at the door, turning back to her with eyes like ice. You know what? With this much lying and scheming about DNA and paternity, maybe I should run a test myself, just to know for sure Sophie and Ethan are really mine. Monica's face went ghost white. Adrian, you can't be serious. I'm dead serious. Because if you can lie to Vincent for a year, if you can lie to me about when you found out, if you can spin stories for neighbors, friends, even our kids, then how do I know what else is a lie? They're your children. You'd never what? Lie, manipulate, hurt someone who loved you? His laugh was sharp and bitter. Because you just admitted to doing exactly that. Her bravado crumbled, panic flooding her features. This is insane. You're both insane. Adrian, I'm your wife. Those children are yours. You can't honestly think. I don't know what to think anymore, Adrian said, his voice low. Not about you, not about our marriage, not about what's real and what's another story you've spun. He moved toward the door, then glanced back one last time. Vincent, thank you for what you did all those years and for finally showing me who I actually married. Monica stayed rooted in the middle of my living room as Adrian's footsteps echoed down the walk. The sound of his car starting cut through the silence. Only then did she stir, rushing to the window to watch him drive away. This is your fault, she whispered, but the fight was gone from her voice. No, Monica, I said quietly. It's yours. She left without another word. I stood at the window watching her walk down the street toward whatever future she had left, this time truly on her own. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. And as always, thank you for watching.